Today my postcard comes from the home of the stars. No, not Hollywood, Greenwich. Greenwich is getting ready for the new millennium, but it's been around long before that, at least since marauding Danish sailors moored their ships by Greenwich and their King Canute taxed prosperous Saxon London nearly 5 tons of silver to pay them. This London borough forms the northern part of the real county of Kent and has played a glorious part in Britain's maritime history, royal history, and has become synonymous with seconds, minutes and hours, latitudes, longitudes and astronomy all over the world. But first, one of Greenwich's superstars. No, not Lord Nelson, but the Cutty Sark. The Cutty Sark, probably the most famous sailing ship in all the world, in dry dock here in Greenwich, and built in Dumbarton, in Dumbartonshire in 1869, but known because she was the fastest clipper that ever sailed the world, especially making her name in the wool trade. From Australia to Britain, she broke all records. She still looks good, doesn't she? Captain George Moody, first master of the Cutty Sark, who was known for his intolerance of anything less than perfection, said, "I never sailed a finer ship. At 10 or 12 knots, she did not disturb the water at all. She was the fastest ship of her day, a grand ship and a ship that will last forever." She got her name from a Ruby Burns poem, Tam O'Shanter, where a Cutty Sark means a short blouse, a short chemise, a short dress. But this is one big lady. Originally built as a tea clipper, it was wool that made her name, but it was steamships that made her redundant. The crew often worked under arduous conditions, but in 1880, though the Cutty Sark was a lucky ship, one voyage under Captain Wallis was not. The mate, a chap called Smith, a surly Scot with a nasty reputation, killed John Francis, a crew member. And because he was never brought to justice, the crew rebelled, and Wallis, fearing his future, walked aft, stepped on the stern rail, and jumped overboard, never to be seen again. Oh, well, it's a good job the old captain's got a fire in his cabin here on the Cutty Sark. Imagine, though, if this ship was toppling over in the high winds and waves, if a bit of coal had gone out, this ship could have gone right up. But she didn't. She's still here after all those years. And the captain lived in the lap of luxury, as you can see. He's got a great kitchen back there, too. And all that tea, well, certainly didn't go to waste. Cheers. Can't read my fortune in that. Here's the captain's kitchen where they made my cuppa. And that looks like a pillar of salt. Now on to the mastheads. Well, this one looks like Pocahontas, who had a connection around and about this part of Kent. Who could this be? No clues now. Philip, my husband, and... oh well, on to the Maritime Museum with its exhibition on Nelson, Britain's greatest naval hero. Here are some of the Doctor's instruments used on the great man, and the 68-pound cannonball, which was fired at HMS Victory at the Battle of Trafalgar. Kiss me, Hardy. This gigantic picture of the Battle of Trafalgar was painted by Turner and was controversial in the fact it was said to be inaccurate, but there's no doubting its majesty. And it was, in fact, the biggest picture that Turner ever painted. And here we have the figurehead from Nelson's funeral car. And, oh, David Williams, you tell us all about it.
Right, yes, in fact, this is all that remains of the funeral car that was used to carry Nelson's body for the magnificent state funeral which took place in January 1806. There was a tremendous outpouring of grief, and the procession was so long that the head of it had reached St Paul's before the start of it had left Whitehall. Thousands of people attended, and this figurehead is all that remains, together with a couple of letters showing Nelson's motto which read around the edge.
Why did they feel so strongly about Nelson? Was it simply because he was so glamorous, he was a hero?
He died at the height of his greatest battle. The death actually near enough overshadowed his tremendous victory at Trafalgar, you know, off Cape Trafalgar. His loss was felt throughout the country. And, you know, people actually say that when the funeral car went past, there was a noise like an ocean wave. That was actually people taking their hats off. Very, very moving.
And now let's whiz over to Queen Anne's house. There's everything here at Greenwich. Queen Anne of Denmark, wife of James I. She commissioned the Queen's house here in Greenwich. She commissioned Inigo Jones, a very famous architect, to build this place. Unfortunately, she died before she could see it. Sad, died of typhoid apparently. But it was this queen in here, Henrietta Maria, who really loved this place, who really made it famous, wife of the ill-fated Charles I. This spectacular tulip staircase is the first spiral stairway built in England with no central support. It's also the location for a spooky occurrence. In 1966, Reverend Hardy of Canada and his wife took a photograph of the tulip staircase, checking beforehand that there was nobody else around. When the pictures were developed, there were the shadowy figures of two people halfway up the staircase. Reverend Hardy sent the picture to the Ghost Club, which maintains to this day that the clearly distinguishable figures were in fact ghosts.
Russell, this is my favourite room, or loggia, or balcony, if you like. This is a little Italian import into the centre of Greenwich. It's what we whimsically call the mother of all gin and tonic balconies, because it's ideal for corporate occasions. I think, or at least I hope you'll agree, that with a bit of imagination, you could be back in the 17th century with this sort of wonderful view. And there we have, it was finished in 1675, Sir Christopher Wren's masterpiece, the Old Royal Observatory, the centre of time and space, and fairly recently we installed a laser light which at night denotes the prime meridian which shoots across the side of the park. There's all sorts of navigational instruments up there, telescopes and orreries, all sorts of wonderful chronometers and timekeepers. The other thing, I suppose, do you see the big red ball?
Yeah, like the Hellfire Club.
I think you've got it.
Sir Francis Dashwood, yes.
That's it. Well, the red ball, which was placed there in about the 1830s or so, rises to the top of the shaft at 5 to 1. A lot of our guests and tourists, obviously, home their videos and cameras on it, and it comes down at exactly 1. Originally, it was so that the ships could set their chronometers to it.
I'm in the old Royal Observatory in Greenwich, because the Royal Observatory in Greenwich is now in Cambridge. They moved because light pollution around here was so bad you couldn't see the stars, so they've all moved up to Cambridgeshire. Now, I would open this roof for you, but the trouble is the squirrels have been nibbling all the electrical bits. Now, what has this big telescope discovered? When was it put here, and why is it here at all?
This telescope's about 100 years old, and it wasn't put here to discover planets or anything. It was put here to look at binary stars, which are stars that are caught together in their own rotational gravity. And it's the seventh largest refracting telescope in the world, and it's the largest optical telescope in Britain.
You can see why this was one of Henry VIII's favourite places for a palace, can't you? How did Greenwich begin?
Greenwich Park is the oldest of the royal parks and enclosed in 1433 for Duke Humphrey, the brother of Henry V. When Humphrey died, the area passed on to the king, and the palace that was built by the river became the main royal residence of the Tudor monarchs and the home of the kings and queens up to Charles I.
And King Henry was born here?
King Henry was born here, his two daughters, Elizabeth and Mary, and his only son died in Greenwich.
How did Greenwich get its name?
It's a green village by the river.
How do you know this?
I'm a Greenwich qualified guide.
What's your name?
Jill Cooper.
Jill, you know everything in Greenwich. Well, that about wraps up my postcard from Greenwich. But here's a reminder of how much there is to see. And that's before they've even built a dome. Do they actually need one? Well, I think there's enough to see already.